I want to now touch upon that word, apocalypse. But most of them never really grasp the meaning of the word apocalypse. It's a Greek word, and it has several meanings. The revealing, the uncovering, and the disclosing of what? The truth. And you're living in the middle of the apocalypse. You've been living in it for the last 10 to 20 years, and you're going to be living in it for another 20 or 30 years. The revealing, the uncovering, and the disclosing is taking place. As you sit here and as you breathe, it is taking place now. But I got into this little tangle with Greer and Bassett. I respect them both. They're decent guys. I've known Stephen Greer for years. They keep hammering away. They have these conferences in Washington, and they keep prodding the Congress, and they keep prodding the government. And you've got to have a committee. You've got to reveal this material. You've got to tell the American people the truth, blah, blah, blah. And the government, pardon me, but they give them that middle finger, you know, in the air. Excuse me, ladies, I'm sorry, that's rather rude, but the government does that to Greer and Bassett. And they go back and they say, well, maybe next week, maybe next month. Oh, a new administration. Ooh, we've got Podesta, who worked for Clinton. We've got Panetta, who worked for Clinton. And we got a young president who I believe is honest and transparent and is going to tell us the truth. I said to Bassett and Greer, don't hold your breath, guys. It ain't going to happen. That new president ain't going to put that on his plate, not if he can avoid it. Because he's not going to get the whole story right now. He's got so damn much piled up outside of his Oval Office, he can hardly get in and out of it. And you all know the story on that. Now, who's the other Stephen? Young man in Hollywood. Spielberg. Now, where does he fit into this thing? Well, when I was asked about disclosure, is it going to happen? And I say no, yes, yes, no, no, yes. And everybody's saying, what the hell are you talking about? Disclosure has been underway for some time. Steven Spielberg made a bunch of movies. He made E.T., which I think most of you have probably seen. That was for the kids. He made another one called The Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and that was for the big guys. And then he made a television series called Taken, which was dynamite. And tell me, and I've got this from sources that I trust, that he's got two separate programs in the mill, another movie and perhaps another TV series that he's working on, that they're going to come up with hopefully in the next few years. Now these movies, as they come out, affect people. There's not a one of you here in the audience that wasn't, affected by E.T. It was cute. It was a kid's story, really. And I think there's not a one of you who wasn't touched at the closing scene of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when the guys piled aboard that ship and off it went. And then Taken, which I think ran for a number of weeks. I can't remember how many episodes it was. 20? Good God, yes. Well, that's a major program. It was powerful, well written, and dynamite. And it had so much classified material in it that most people, I don't think, ever realized that they were looking at classified material. And then there was another guy out in Hollywood who I got to know. A number of years ago, I was honored to be invited to be a speaker at the Mensa Regional Conference in Orange County. And I was honored to be invited, and I went and spoke to the Mensa crowd. And the guest of honor at that particular regional conference was a dude with the name of Chris Carter. He was the producer-director of the X-Files, as most of you know. After presentations and all, and drinks, you know. I got him aside, and we're standing there sipping away. Fruit juice, of course. Pulled him over, and I says, Chris, you got to level with me. I says, I've been watching your program here now for some time. I think it had been underway for about 6 years at that time. And I said, it's impressive. Some of your stories are dynamite. Some of your stories aren't worth powder to blow them away. But it's a pretty decent series. But I says, I want to ask you something. There are 3 incidents, 3 episodes of your X-Files that I happen to know are highly classified government secrets. And I've been on the inside. I knew these things to be classified. And here they are, I'm seeing on the X-Files, for God's sake. And I says, how the hell do you guys do that? He says, I've got some great writers. And I said, bullshit, nonsense, poppycock, you know. What is it, the old British ancestors? Balderdash. I said, you can't tell me that your writers have come up with classified material that they've grammatized that are right on and are still classified. And he looked around and he got a sheepish grin on his face and he says, well, yeah, we've been getting some story ideas from a variety of sources. I said, where? And he said, well, I can't really say, but we've been getting some promotional ideas from different people. And I said, well, you're right on. And I laid them out for him. These 3 particular cases were classified and still are classified. And all he did, he looked at me sheepishly and he grinned and he says, you ain't seen nothing yet. Stay tuned. And it ran for another 2 years. But there again is what I wanted to point out to you, what Spielberg was involved in, what Chris Carter is involved in, and what some of the directors and writers of the Stargate series and the Star Trek series, from time to time, little bits and pieces of material are injected into those storylines that are not fiction. They're not science fiction, they're science fact. But they're introduced in such a way that you don't know it, you don't recognize it. It hits you at what's known as the subliminal level. And when I tell you that disclosure ain't gonna happen, and then I tell you that disclosure is happening now, I'm referring to that subliminal educational program that is underway that you're all being subjected to. You're getting the uncovering and the revealing and the disclosure in subtle ways that you don't even recognize. And you're going to get more of it because the program apparently is rather successful, and the guys who put it together are rather pleased at your response. And you're going to be getting more stories. And you're going to get some stories that are so far out you're going to say to yourself, good God, that couldn't happen. But good God, it is happening. This program is underway. It's subtle, it's continuous, and it is subliminal education. And it's affecting you, it's affecting everybody. And you're going to see more of it. They did it in the Stargate series, they did it in Star Trek. Kirk, Jean-Luc Picard, and the rest of them from the Enterprise. They slip little bits and pieces in from time to time where you think, ooh, isn't that exciting? Isn't that way out? Guys, it's not that way out. Ben Rich, before he retired from Lockheed Martin, made some comments to a number of people there, California. Ben Rich said before he retired, he says, we're 100 years ahead of establishment science. And this is a guy who had a right to know, and he had a need to know, and he was in the inside of the program. We're 100 years ahead of establishment science. The stuff that normally is understood by guys in universities, you know, on the street. Rich says we're 100 years beyond that. And he says, you know, we could take E.T. home. Now, movie was out at about that time, and as you know the story from E.T., the little dude says, E.T., go home. E.T. wants to go home. Rich says, we can take E.T. home. Now, then Rich has been dead for 10 years, for God's sake. I knew another Lockheed Martin scientist who has passed away, a guy by the name of David Froning, who worked with Lockheed Martin for, almost 30 years. I invited David to speak at a conference in Phoenix some years back. Wendell Stevens and I put on a program, and we got a hold of Froning. We knew he was brilliant, and we knew he had been on the inside of research at Lockheed Martin for so long. And we got David to come down and speak at our conference there in Phoenix. And he was getting up in years. David's gone home now. He was getting up in years. And he shared some things with us. God, they got me so wired up here. Anyhow, Froning said, you know, Bob, he said, I've been retired now for 10 years. He says, before I retired, I was in the Advanced Systems Division of Lockheed Martin. And we were dealing with something we called modified field propulsion. A variable field, he said. Of course, he began to lose me immediately. I didn't get what he was talking about. Matter-antimatter conversion. Exotic field tension. Wormhole. He said it will modify time and space, and he says we have had transluminal flight for over 30 years. And I had to stop again, and I says, hold it. Transluminal, hyperluminal flight. I says, you're talking about faster than light, for God's sake. He said, yeah, we've had it now for 30 years. Now this is from David Froning, who'd spent, you know, biggest chunk of his life as an advanced systems engineer for Lockheed Martin. And then we get the material from Ben Rich. And somebody said to Rich, he said, Ben, what the hell are you really talking about? He goes to the blackboard. His big dinner for retirement, I think, was one of the major hangars over there. Blackboard, he goes up and he writes, unfunded opportunities. I say, what the hell are you talking about? He takes a chalk and he circles U, F, and O. And then he left the stage and walked out the door, and they're all thinking, good God, what this man's lost it here. Unfunded opportunities, UFO. What he was inferring and saying literally in their face, yes, we have reverse engineered technology from alien craft. And we're flying it, and it works. And we can take E.T. home. Now, one of the reasons I get so ticked off, you have to forgive me here, I'm getting old. I don't have the patience I used to have. The rumor has been going around that I've turned out to be a mean, rotten old fart. Cynical, grumpy. Well, that's not entirely true. I like to think, as Henry Higgins said, that I have the milk of human kindness by the quart in every vein. But I can't really pull it off. I guess I am getting kind of grumpy in my old age. Guys, I'm getting angry. I really am getting angrier every day when I think about the con job that's being pulled on you and 300 million other Americans on a daily basis, where they are literally conning you to the point they're taking you to the cleaners. They're stealing you blind, and then they're lying to you about it.